Hi guys, I got some stuff done this week. I guess for starters is I'm coming along with getting a title for the Willys. As you recall, that Jeep came without a title. I purchased it gambling that there's nobody looking for it and then it would be taken away from me. That's one of the reasons why I got kind of a banger deal on it. But with the state of Wisconsin, along with the regular title and registration paperwork, there is extra paperwork that you have to fill out so that they can investigate your vehicle, see if they can find any records of it. Is there somebody looking for it? So there's extra paperwork. You have to take pictures of the vehicle all the way around. And then they call themselves the Vehicle Research Unit. They look into it. If they can't find anybody claiming ownership or who has the original title, they place a value on your vehicle, and then you need to get a surety bond for that amount. Just to kind of, I guess it's their way of keeping things on the up and up, keep an eye on you, make sure that, maybe they find out later on you did steal it or whatever. But kind of a cutesy little thing is they have to place a value on your vehicle. Now, you've seen that, the Willys, you've seen it. Doesn't run, doesn't even have seats. They came up with a value of that Willys right there of $10,150. And you have to get a bond for 1.5 times that, which comes up to $15,225. Now, I want it so bad to call the state of Wisconsin and offer to sell them that Jeep for half. I'd sell it to them for half. But I've come to find out that government workers don't have much of a sense of humor, so I thought I'd keep that one to myself. But anyway, I got my surety bond. Sent that paperwork back into the state of Wisconsin. Hopefully in a month and a half, whatever, I'll get a title that says bonded on it, I guess. One little happy note, I guess, was for whatever reason, to get a surety bond, the $300 mark kept coming up. I heard it someplace else, and then actually the bonding agent that I talked to, he brought up $300 too. I don't know what's up with $300, but the bond in it ended up actually costing me $152. So it ended up being half of what I thought it would be. So it's something I had to do, but I guess it was a little, in my own little mind, it's a little bonus that I paid half. So that's progressing. Hopefully it'll end up on a little happy note. On the work side, got some things done. I got the starter on, got that wired up the positive for my battery, wired up the coil. I've got my new ignition switch in. This wire here is the accessory off of my ignition switch. Eventually, that'll be going over to the driver's side of the vehicle where I am going to be installing a new fuse panel. Instead of just almost everything going through the light switch, I thought that a fuse panel would be a nice little upgrade. Got my timing cover on. I did use the gaskets, and the gasket between the block and the timing cover, and between the timing cover and the pan. They're two separate gaskets, and where they meet, right down here in this little crotch right here, I thought that would be a weak spot, so I did put some sealer down there. So I'm pretty confident that that's all sealed up. Of course, put a new seal for the the cam or the crankshaft gear. I did replace that seal also. I've been using on the timing cover gaskets and also on the oil pump gasket. I've been using this copper sprayer gasket. I've never used it before, but it makes sense, I guess. Fills in any imperfections, supposedly. Makes disassembly easier. And it does make the gaskets a little sticky so that they stay in place a little easier, I guess. So I am experimenting with that. Hopefully it doesn't come back and bite me. Have a new oil pressure line. The old rubber hose just kind of broke right in half. So I replaced the rubber hose and the solid hose or solid line. I also put a new wire onto my horn switch on my steering column. I did have another CJ2A in 1946 a bunch of years back, and so I do know some things. I know enough that there are parts that, since you have another part off, it's easier to replace that part now. That goes a long ways as far as the oil lines go. That oil pressure line and the oil lines going to the oil filter. It's wise to replace those now because they're darn near impossible to replace later. Same thing with that wire for the horn. That's really difficult to get to with chubby fingers later on when everything's put back together. So I'm trying to think ahead a little bit, make my life a little easier. A nice little project was the oil pump in the distributor. Something that I was a little cautious on, something that I feared a little bit. Never did it before, but it went pretty smooth. This is the new oil pump. I was a little taken back when I first compared it to the old oil pump. The old oil pump, the casting is this thick all the way around. Whereas the new Melling oil pump, right here at this one connection point, the casting is only that thick. That ended up being a blessing because what I was able to do is take my oil pump and put it up into the engine, get it started, and thread on this nut just so it was hanging out of the engine so far that it wasn't meshing with the cam gear yet. So then I was able to come back over to the distributor side and take this long, flat-bladed screwdriver, stick it down there. The distributor wasn't there at the time. It was just the hole. Stick this screwdriver through the hole to the oil pump, and I was able to clock the oil pump the way I needed to, and then go back around the other side of the engine and push it up, finish pushing it up into the engine, and then secure the oil pump with one of the other nuts where the thicker part of the casting was to hold it up into the engine. It only took me twice to figure out the secret of where to start that gear so that as it meshes with the cam gear, as you recall, that gear has spiral teeth on it. So as you're pushing it up into the engine, it's turning counterclockwise. So where you start out with that shaft is not where it ends up. That slot is going to turn as you're pushing it up into the engine. So what I figured out was if you start with that slot straight up and down, you may want to call it 6 o'clock. By the time you push it up into the engine and it turns counterclockwise, it ends up at 5 o'clock exactly where you want it. I have fat down here because, as you recall, the slot is offset on the shaft. It's not right in the middle of the shaft. So for whatever reason, I was calling the bigger side the fat side. So then, of course, in my warped mind, I'm thinking of Fat Bastard right away from Austin Powers. Get in my belly. So that's why I was calling that fat. And if you've never watched Austin Powers, maybe that's why you're sad. There's something wrong with me. So, got the oil pump up into the engine where I wanted it. Now it's time to put the distributor in. Now, I don't know if this is necessary or not, but it was to me. Before I started messing with putting the distributor into the engine, I did mark what I wanted to be the number one cylinder on my distributor cap. I did mark that on the cap, okay, with the yellow paint, and then I transferred that mark onto the body of my distributor, which you can't see now, but there is a yellow mark on the body of the distributor. And then just to help me out a little bit, see things, I did put a little yellow paint on the rotor, so that as I'm test fitting the distributor into the engine, I am assured that that is exactly where I want that rotor. Now there is a spring steel collar that goes on the end of that distributor shaft. Actually, come back over here. Kind of a neat view. You can actually see where the oil pump, which is this lower part, and the distributor shaft actually intersect. And at the end of your distributor shaft, you have your tab, okay, that goes into the slot of the oil pump. And on the end of that distributor shaft, like I say, there's a spring steel collar that goes on the end. It's an anti-rattle sleeve. Don't put that on right away. Test fit your distributor, and then once you're comfortable with how things are working out, then put that collar on, because that collar has some really close tolerances. It's something that you only want to do once. So what I ended up doing was I was comfortable with how the distributor was. I went in for that last time, put that collar on, and like I say, it's super tight. So I took my rotor off, and I hit the end of the distributor shaft just ever so lightly with a dead blow hammer, just to pop, just to knock at that extra little bit and connect it with the oil pump. Worked out really nice. Everything is exactly where I wanted it. And like I say, it ended up being a nice little project. Super happy with Melling that they did change the casting on their pump so that I was able to install that oil pump almost in stages. A stage where I was clocking the slot the way I wanted it, and then an actual pushing it up into the engine and then being able to secure it. So I don't know if they had that planned, but thanks so much, because that really ended up panning out for me, considering that I do work alone. Otherwise, I probably would have needed help, somebody to actually kind of hold that oil pump until I got it clocked just the way I wanted to. So no complaints from me. I guess the only thing left is some dad advice. My dad advice for today is don't wait for a good day to be happy. And beyond that, I guess I should start asking if you could like, share, and subscribe to my channel. What's the worst that can happen? Probably catch me doing some stupid stuff, but that's going to happen with or without you, so why not? So have a good week, and I hope everything goes well on your side of the world, and we'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.